Hey my friend, Jonah here, and welcome to Lions Mane Media. Now, this video could end up getting me kicked out of church, but I feel it should be said anyway. You know those moments where you suddenly get clarity on something as it all just starts to click? I had one of those moments recently as my mind was going on rabbit trails late at night, which it was probably only doing because I was up late at night, but it was about how for some reason I pretty much don't enjoy watching sports at all, except for like a few niche tastes, which is like namely sports movies, actually attending them and having some sort of connection like, oh, I'm going with a family member or someone I know is playing, or there being this benefit, like how restaurants may do, like, oh, you get a discount if the team wins or whatever. For a long time it was that I felt it was just like, I need a story. I'm a storyteller. I want the story to kind of get me interested in it. But I realized that is both more of a yes and a no. Because how I view sports is actually how I view most sports is quite similar to one of the worst things an author can hear about their work. Which is, I don't care what happens. Because to be honest, I'd rather be tossing an actual ball around than watching a bunch of millionaires play ball with each other on TV. And what does it really matter if a team makes it to the playoffs or not? Yet, if I watch a movie or read a story, then every defeat and victory starts to matter to me. I become invested in the characters, and that's the result of a trolley story and characters, or probably even just ones that happen to resonate with me in some way. Because there are a lot of athletes out there who have amazing stories of how they got to where they are. And there are also incredible stories of sporting events that don't really get told enough. Although there are also those who think they are far more talented than they actually are. Now, part of the difference with these movies and even biographies and so forth is that they show more of the picture than just what we are seeing in the field or what is said during the interviews. We get these examples of them going through experiences that are familiar or understandable to all of us. We relate to them when someone has the human experience in a way. And we also get to see the proof of work that comes out, where we see the training they put in or the challenges they had to overcome to get to where they are. Rather than just them saying it, we actually kind of see them work through it. And again, there's a way to tell what happened where you're sharing a story, and a way to tell what happened where it's just like, this is what happened, which does make a difference. And the thing is that proof of work and those experiences are what build connection and authenticity with them. And a lot of people are hungry for authenticity these days, except for probably those who aren't really authentic at all. And now proximity and association is also capable of building these. It's kind of like how when we're having a conversation face to face, it's a lot more intimate than just texting each other. We see a person's body language and hear their tone, and it gives that context and weight to what they're saying. We may actually pick up what they're really saying in what, like how they say read between the lines, or like you kind of need to listen between the phrases or whatever. And with so little distance between us, they end up becoming much more real in a sense, because it's like there are things you might say to someone who's just basically a profile picture and a string of text, rather than someone who's actually real in front of you and you're conversing with them and you're within swinging distance of them. Then there's like this realness sense, or it's kind of like there's a different view on how that is, because we see them differently. Like we relate to them more because we're actually seeing and experiencing life with them. And it's kind of funny fact, there's the same with these games that offer people a chance to create characters of different races like elves, dwarves, aliens, and etc. Is that the majority of characters that are created in those games are still humans for some reason. And it kind of also makes sense because why there's generally like this human viewpoint character in fantasy and sci-fi. We basically have this automatic rapport with them because we tend to have that human experience with them in a sense. It's like how we have these characters that will travel to fantastical worlds and so forth. We get to see how they interact. We can kind of assume how they will interact because they're human. They're kind of like that touchstone of familiarity, and it allows them to ask the questions that we might know rather than getting the author to do like the thing of where true characters who should know what they're talking about and not really be referencing the things have to talk about things. If that makes sense. It's like, oh, they can actually ask why something works rather than just having someone say it only for the purpose of the viewers. And then I'm not saying it's always the case because some stories can work really well, but really the humanish, and animals as the main characters are probably the most used for a reason, because we feel we know them in a way, which again makes us more willing to jump into a new world with them as kind of like that touchstone of familiarity. It's also kind of like how we will enjoy some things just because we are doing them with people we know, or we get to watch them do it. It's like if we have a memory growing up of watching a certain show with family or going to an event with family, we'll probably have a rosier picture of that, at least if we had a good family life, than otherwise. And if we have friends who enjoy certain things, we'll have a different perspective on going with them to do these different things than what we otherwise might do it. And if we don't enjoy something, we might do it just because our friends and actually have a good time. This sort of a thing. And again, that's the rub with certain stories, is that they don't make you feel like you actually know the characters, or at least have that sort of connection with them. The focus is on how other they are, which can work in certain contexts, but it's often partnered with the fact that they're always right about things, or naturally, or really never get challenged on anything. And granted, wish fulfillment has its place, but then it actually also needs to be fun. And then you kind of need to have the journey of ups and downs in a sense, rather than just having the character always triumphing and always being right and so forth. There needs to be a bit more than just perfection in a sense, for the most part. And again, it's about wishes after all. That's the thing of wish fulfillment. And who wishes to be lectured about all the ills of the world? And I guess this is probably sounding a bit more like a ramble right now, but summing up, the point is that the stories, or even the stories we read into things, make up a large part about why we care about things. Again, it all comes down to perspective. My perspective is obviously much different than someone who's a huge sports fan. And again, it's the stories we are told, the stories we read into things. And for another example, if all we see is someone acting like a jerk, that is the story we will tend to believe. And even if evidence is presented that says otherwise, some people may continue believing it just because of that first story. It's kind of that first impression that's been made and so forth. Which is why the stories we tell and the ones we are told matter so much. Because when we realize kind of the effect of the stories we tell, it might change the way we tell them or what we tell, in a sense. Because, again, we all have a bit of influence. We may just not realize what we're doing with it. And we might also not realize just how we are being influenced, which is why we also need to pay attention to what stories we are being told, and when it might be time for a different perspective. Of course, this is all on my perspective as a writer. So obviously, there is a fair bit of bias here. So feel free to let me know your perspective in the comments below so that I can learn another perspective on the story we all share. Anyway, if you like this content, please like and subscribe to support the growth of this channel, and I'll talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.